What happens when the very words that are supposed to bring us closer actually end up creating this tangled web of criticism and dependence? Today, we're going to break down a really tough situation where that line between a harmless joke and a hurtful comment gets dangerously blurry. And we'll see how that can trap someone in a cycle of confusion and, honestly, a lot of pain.
Wow, right out of the gate, this just cuts straight to the heart of it, doesn't it? The key words here, for me, are repeated, and I've asked him to stop. This tells you this isn't some one-off comment that just didn't land right. Nope, this is a pattern of behavior, and a direct request to make it end has just been ignored.
And that's really the million-dollar question here, right? When does humor stop being this thing that connects people and instead become a weapon? Something that just chips away at a person's confidence, their self-worth, and even their feeling of safety in their own relationship. So let's dive into how this can happen. To really get the weight of this, we have to look at the whole picture. This isn't just about a single off-color comment. It's about a persistent dynamic that has taken root in their relationship.
Okay, so let's set the scene here. We've got Haley. She's only 21 years old and just a few months postpartum. That's a time of huge physical and emotional vulnerability for anyone. Her husband, Ernest, is 40. That's nearly twice her age. And with two little kids in the mix, the stage is already set for a really complex power dynamic.
And here is that fundamental disconnect. On one side, you have the intent. He says the words are just harmless jokes, right? But on the other side, you have the impact. For her, it's causing deep, real pain. This gap between what I meant and how it made you feel, that's where this entire conflict lives and breathes. And like we said, this isn't a one-time thing. Not at all. The source material shows us that these comments form a really clear and troubling pattern, and they go way beyond just one topic. So the comments aren't just about her body right now after having a baby. No, they also stretch to criticizing her family members, which creates this feeling that really no one is safe from the judgment. And maybe the most painful part, he brings up past comparisons to her sibling, which just shows these jabs are almost designed to hit where it's going to hurt the most. For Haley, the impact is just devastating. It's not just about the words being said in that moment. It's about how those words are like little landmines that detonate past traumas. A comment that Ernest might see as totally fleeting is actually ripping open old wounds that she has fought so hard to heal. It can undo years of progress in just a single second. So what happens when Haley works up the courage to say, hey, that really hurts? Well, she just enters the next phase of this really destructive dynamic, a cycle of dismissal. A cycle where her feelings aren't just ignored, they're actively invalidated. This slide just lays out that frustrating disconnect perfectly. On the left, you see Haley's internal reality. She's feeling hurt, she's constantly on edge, and she's even starting to question her own sanity. But then, on the right, you see the response she gets, which completely dismisses her reality. It's that classic tactic, right? The problem isn't what I did, the problem is your reaction to it. And this confusion just gets worse because of the advice she gets from other people. Those phrases like, oh, every couple jokes, or but he loves you. Even if people mean well, what they're actually doing is normalizing the harmful behavior. They're subtly telling her that this kind of pain is a normal, maybe even necessary part of love. And that just pushes her deeper into feeling totally alone. Okay, so now we have to layer in another really crucial element that basically tightens this emotional trap: the practical, real-world realities of dependence. And that makes it incredibly difficult for her to challenge anything that's going on. See, the cage isn't just emotional, it's logistical. Haley is financially dependent on him, she doesn't have her own reliable way to get around, and any plans they might have made for her to gain some independence, they've all just fizzled out. Every single one of these practical barriers makes that emotional burden feel so much heavier, and the path out that much harder to see. And her own words just capture this impossible dilemma she's in. Is she staying because she's genuinely confused about the relationship? Or is she staying because she's terrified of the instability that would come if she left? When your practical survival is tied to the very source of your emotional pain, it becomes incredibly difficult to tell the two apart. All of this, the comments, the dismissal, the dependence, it all just builds and builds until it hits a breaking point. A point where the emotional stress starts to take a very real physical toll. And this is so important to understand. This kind of constant emotional distress isn't just some abstract feeling. It's actually manifesting physically in her body. that constant tension, that feeling of always being on edge, it has real-world health consequences. It's making those invisible wounds visible. This is the absolute core of her confusion. After being told over and over and over again that she's too sensitive and that all couples joke around like this, the line has just become totally blurred. She can no longer easily tell the difference between the normal, everyday friction of a partnership and a pattern of behavior that is fundamentally, slowly wearing her down to nothing.
And so we're left with Haley's question. But it's not just a question for her, is it? It's a question for all of us in our own relationships. It forces us to ask ourselves, where do we draw the line between humor and hurt? And what does it truly mean to feel safe and to feel respected by the person you love?